United States defense commitments to Japan and to the Philippines are ironclad. They're ironclad.
I take this opportunity to firmly reiterate India's support to the Philippines for upholding its national sovereignty.
You might have come across these videos of Chinese Coast Guard ships blasting high-pressure water cannons at a Philippine boat in the South China Sea. The South China Sea is heating up again. Will this lead to a bigger conflict in the future? What role can India play in it? How is India's outreach to the countries in the region change the geopolitical dynamics? And is India finally ready to take on China at the global stage? We'll discuss all this in today's video. Hello guys, I am Saurav and welcome to the Arc. On 23rd March, it was reported that two Chinese Coast Guard ships fired high-pressure water cannons at a Philippine supply boat when it was on its way to deliver supply and provisions to the BRP Sierra Madre on the Second Thomas Shoal. In the 1990s, the Philippines grounded an aging World War II era Navy ship called the BRP Sierra Madre on the shoal to help enforce its claim to the area. The ship is now mostly a rusted wreckage and is manned by Philippine Marines stationed on rotation. In this incident, the supply vessel was heavily damaged and 3 sailors were also said to have been injured. This was the second such incident in the past month. Earlier on 5th March, 4 crew members were injured by broken glass in a Chinese Coast Guard water cannon attack on the same vessel. The South China Sea is one of the most important shipping routes of the world, connecting the Pacific Ocean on the east and the Indian Ocean on the west. Over 21% of global trade, amounting to $3.37 trillion, transited through these waters in 2016. It is home to rich fishing grounds, on which livelihoods of millions of people across the region depend, and more than 50% of world's fishing vessels operate in this area. Also, as per estimates, the South China Sea holds about 190 trillion cubic feet of natural gas and 11 billion barrels of oil in proved and probable reserves. And that's a major reason behind this dispute. There are multiple island chains within the South China Sea. The most prominent ones are Paracel and Spratly Islands, Scarborough Shoal and the Second Thomas Shoal. And the countries surrounding the South China Sea claim these islands as their own. In 1947, China issued a map with the so-called 9-dash line. The line comprises of 9 dashes, which extends hundreds of miles south and east from its southernmost province of Hainan. The line essentially encircles China's claimed waters and islands of the South China Sea, which is about 90% of the sea. However, the basis for China's claims and the coordinates of the 9-dash line both are vague. Vietnam, on the other hand, disputes China's claims. Vietnam claims sovereignty over both the Paracels and the Spratlys. Malaysia and Brunei also lay claim to territory in the South China Sea that they say falls within their exclusive economic zones, as defined by the UNCLOS. The other major claimant to the area is the Philippines, which because of its geographical proximity to the Spratly Islands, claims it as its own. China claims the Second Thomas Shoal, occupied by the Philippines, which lies about 200 km from the Philippine island of Palawan. And China is now trying to block access for the Philippines to the shoal. Both China and Philippines also lay claim to the Scarborough Shoal, which is about 160 km away from the Philippines and more than 800 km away from China. China seized the Scarborough Shoal from Philippines in 2012. In 2013, Philippines decided to begin an international arbitration process under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS, against China for its sovereignty claims over the Spratly Islands and Scarborough Shoal. In 2016, the tribunal ruled in favor of Philippines, dismissing China's claims. But China rejected the ruling and refuses to comply. Interestingly, China was one of the first countries to have signed the UNCLOS in 1982 and ratified the convention in 1996. As per the UNCLOS, the exclusive economic zone extends up to 200 nautical miles. From the Territorial Sea, countries enjoy sovereign rights over the natural resources within their EEZs. On the South China Sea issue, the basis of claims by most of the countries except China is the exclusive economic zone as defined by the UNCLOS. To solidify their claims over these islands, countries have established building structures on the islands and have also stationed a few people there for round-the-clock observation. But China went a step further. In late 2013, China started very large-scale reclamations at 7 locations in order to strengthen its territorial claims, demarcated by the 9-dash line. Take a look at these 3 reefs: Subi, Fiery Cross and Mischief. Artificial islands were created by dredging sand onto reefs, which were later converted to make permanent structures. By December 2016, China had created 3,200 acres of new land. The pace at which China built these islands is mind-blowing. China further militarized the islands by building runways, barracks, surveillance radars, and naval ports, and also fielded weapon systems. Though US has no claims on the South China Sea, but it routinely deploys its aircraft carriers, ships, and fighter jets. In what it calls freedom of navigation operations, challenging China's claims to virtually the entire South China Sea. US also conducts frequent military exercises in the region with countries such as Japan, Australia, and Philippines. In the meanwhile, China, building the world's largest navy and maintaining an aggressive posture in the South China Sea, has made other countries in the region anxious. China has effectively militarized the entire South China Sea and seeks resolution of the conflict by military means. Due to this increasing hostility, countries like Philippines and Vietnam are adopting a change in approach to protect their maritime sovereignty and maritime economy. There has been a policy shift in the Philippines. Since the current President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. assumed office in June 2022, the previous President Rodrigo Duterte constantly tried to play down tensions with China, but the current president has taken a different approach. The first of its kind trilateral summit between the United States, Japan, and the Philippines took place at Washington, D.C. on April 11th, with an aim to deepen cooperation between the 3 countries. The 3 countries agreed on a number of defense, security, and economic initiatives, including joint naval patrols, increased Coast Guard cooperation, and other infrastructure projects. Additionally, Japan and Philippines are slated to conclude the signing of reciprocal access agreement by the end of this year. However, what made the headlines was the statement by US President Joe Biden.
The United States defense commitments to Japan and to the Philippines are ironclad. They're ironclad. As I've said before, any attack on Philippine aircraft, vessels, or armed forces in the South China Sea would invoke our Mutual Defense Treaty.
Philippines has enhanced its defense cooperation with the US with more military purchases and joint military exercises. The Philippines also gave access to 4 more bases to the US, taking the total number to 9. But in the event of an all-out conflict with China, to what extent the US will go to aid the Philippines is still not clear. Many believed that a China-ASEAN dialogue could be the way forward in resolving the South China Sea dispute. But the fact of the matter is, within the ASEAN, there are clear divisions on this matter. The approach of countries that have locked horns with China, like Philippines and Vietnam, is different from the countries that enjoy a favorable relationship with China, like Cambodia and Laos, and that's why these countries are looking at forging strategic and defense partnerships with the countries in the region, such as Japan and India. India's Look East policy, initiated in the 1990s, was reshaped as the Act East policy in 2014 to deepen its engagement with East and Southeast Asian countries. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or the ASEAN, is India's fourth largest trading partner. India also has a free trade agreement with ASEAN. Beyond economic relations, partnerships with ASEAN and the Southeast Asian countries have a broader strategic dimension for India. While India has no claims over the South China Sea, but 55% of India's trade passes through the South China Sea and Malacca Strait. Hence, it has significant stakes in the region due to its growing economic and security interests in the Indo-Pacific. And that's why in recent years, there is a change in India's position vis-à-vis the South China Sea issue, from a neutral position to a more assertive one. India has been advocating for a rules-based international maritime order, especially the UNCLOS, underlining the importance of upholding the principles of freedom of navigation and overflight in the South China Sea. India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, paid an official visit to Philippines from 25th to 27th March. Jaishankar firmly reiterated India's support to the Philippines for upholding its national sovereignty.
We are also convinced that the progress and prosperity of this region is best served by staunch adherence to a rules-based order. UNCLOS 1982 is particularly important in that regard as the constitution of the seas. All parties must adhere to it in its entirety, both in letter and in spirit. I take this opportunity to firmly reiterate India's support to the Philippines for upholding its national sovereignty.
India's response, however, has irked China. China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian said, "Maritime disputes are issues between countries concerned, and any third party is not in a position to interfere." As far as defense cooperation is concerned, India-Philippines engagement has increased significantly in recent years. India delivered the BrahMos missiles to the Philippines on April 19th as part of a $375 million deal signed by the two countries in 2022. BrahMos, as we know, is a joint venture between India and Russia. It's a supersonic cruise missile with an operational range of approximately 290 kilometers. It's one of the most accurate and lethal weapon systems in the world. There is also increased military engagements between the two countries. Indian Navy and Coast Guard ships regularly visit the Philippines and conduct joint exercises. Recently, the visit of INS Kadmat, Indian Navy's Kamrota-class anti-submarine warfare corvette, to Manila in December 2023 ruffled some feathers in China. On the Vietnam front, India has significant economic as well as strategic interests. India's state-run ONGC Videsh has been exploring oil in the South China Sea in Vietnamese waters. In July last year, India handed over an in-service missile corvette, INS Kirpan, to Vietnam as a friendly gesture. India also handed over 12 high-speed guard boats to Vietnam in 2022, built under a $100 million line of credit granted by India. Indian Navy and Coast Guard ships make frequent port calls in Vietnam and also conduct joint exercises. Vietnam is also looking to buy BrahMos missiles from India in a deal which could be worth as much as $625 million. As far as other countries in the South China Sea region are concerned, Indonesia is slated to buy the BrahMos missile worth $200 million, and Malaysia too has shown some interest. In many of our previous videos, we have discussed China's increasing naval presence in the Indian Ocean region, its string-up-pearl strategy to encircle India, and its increasing investments and military sales in India's neighborhood. But at the global stage, India has not responded that aggressively against China. So is India finally ready with the counterpunch to China? Is India ready to challenge China in its own backyard, that is the South China Sea? South China Sea is heating up again. We'll have to wait and see how the conflict evolves in the coming times. Thanks for watching. I hope to see you soon with a new video. Thank you.